So have you been practicing this DBWA?
Am I audible? Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So have you been practicing DBWA?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I am
And
currently practicing only brute force attack.
okay. So you are able to do that? Are you having any issues with it?
Yes, sir. Even I have tried over our own website.
Okay. Don't. I told you earlier as well. Don't go attacking any random websites which you don't have permission. Only attack either something like DVW or something that you may have hosted locally on your system, so that you can try. So where did you try this? Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes. But I was not able to do that. Then later on, I tried that by using a YouTube video.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Because these websites are not having any security system.
Which ones?
Our university website.
Okay. But don't go attacking your university websites. That's, you could get into trouble for that.
Okay, sir.
So did you try it on DVW itself?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's
Earlier,
working
I
fine.
thought that I am able to log into that network using DVWA only. But then I came to know that DVWA is only an environment created for practice.
Yeah, DVW is for practice. That's what we are doing here. We are studying it. So we are learning about all these things. So
Yes,
it
sir.
is specifically created to practice different kinds of attacks, to know about different kinds of vulnerabilities that you can find within websites and see how they can be exploited. Because see, no website is going to give you permission to just attack them. So when you're learning, you need to take the help of resources like DVWA, so that you can set up on your own system and you can do whatever you want with that instance of DVWA, since you're hosting it locally on your own server and you don't have to worry about getting into any trouble.
Yes, sir. Sir, is there any other thing as similar to DVWA?
There are a few, yeah. If you take the web application course, you'll see also how going through how to go through all of okay, not all, through a few others as well. And there's this website called Try Hack Me, so you can go there.
Sir, I was earlier working on Try Hack Me while
Okay.
we were practicing scanning, but
Hmm.
the command I am typing there were correct and they were making that wrong.
We were making like what was happening exactly?
Like I typed some command
Hmm.
and that was right, I better know. But I was not able to submit that because my answer was not correct according to them.
The answers, okay, that okay, yeah, they have this answers question answer format, right?
Yes, sir. But
So
later on I googled that too.
hmm,
But Google was also telling the same command.
same command, exact same thing.
Yes, sir. I copy pasted too.
Okay, still showing you the wrong, like it's
Yes,
telling you
sir.
that is the wrong answer.
Yes, sir.
So it might be the case that that particular question might be bugged, because I know basically with TryHackMe, this thing is anyone can create a room, anyone can create exercises. So sometimes there might be the case that some answer has not been coded correctly or something. So you may run into issues like this. But for the most part, you should not be getting any issues there. This might be an isolated incident or two. There's also a discussion forum on Try Hack Me, so you can try asking there if other people are having the same issue with that room, or you may search. Someone may have posted the exact same thing.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so hello, Rohit.
So I received a notice from my university that from 1st of November I'll be having my classes from 9 to 6.
9 to 6. Okay,
Yes, sir.
but our class timings cannot change. I cannot increase the timing here.
Okay,
Hello.
sir.
Yes, Rohit.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, actually, I got issue with my network. That's why I
Okay,
joined late.
okay, that's fine. It happens sometimes.
My network is also not stable today. Maybe.
Okay, if it's not stable, stay in the class, stay in the session for as long as you are able to, and the rest I can give you the link for the class and you can view it later on.
Okay, sir.
Now, where were we at? I think we were at we had covered this okay, file upload we had covered, file inclusion we had covered, and
Yes, sir.
let's take a look at CSRF now. So CSRF stands for cross-site request forgery. Now this is the form. It simply asks for new password and confirm password and change, and it will simply change your password without asking you for any other kind of verification or anything. It will just change that password for whichever user is logged in currently. Let's just go back CSRF, and let's take a look at the source code for this. So this is the form. Whenever you have a field like this, input field, and there's a submit button, that is going to be form in HTML. Close this one off. And this is the login, sorry, not the login form, the form for password changing. You can see there's the heading, change your admin password. That is not what we require. I just require this form. I'll copy it and copy the contents, and I'll basically just go to the desktop, create a new HTML file here, call it new csrf.html, open it. So since we told it to create an HTML file, it already had the basic HTML structure ready for us. This is an advantage to creating an HTML file this way rather than just creating a HTML file with touch. Now I can simply paste that code here. The basic structure of HTML, the basic structure of an HTML page, it had already created for us. Now everything that is a part of the page's content comes under body. Things like the title of the page and other metadata related to that web page comes under the head. So title exchanges title. Okay, I'll come to the title later on. First thing we need to do is, now our goal here is that okay, the functionality of this form should remain the same, that it should change the password, but to the victim whose account's password will change, we'll not make it appear like this. We have to change the appearance of this. So first thing is remove this text, new password, this one as well, and in the input type is equal to password, I'll just change the input type to hidden because we don't want this to be visible anyway, so it doesn't matter. We'll just change the input type hidden. Autocomplete doesn't matter since it's a hidden field. Name is equal to password new, and for the second field password count. This we need to make sure that we don't change this, and we need to add the value here. So by default this field will start with a value, and that would be the value of the new password that we want to keep for this account. So this will not be known to the victim, but it will be known to us. So when the victim clicks on our link, their account will get changed, and the new password, the value for that I will be specifying here. So the value, it could be anything. Let's just say changed pass. Same thing, I'll just copy and paste in the second one because it needs to be the same. So okay, same thing. Input type is equal to submit. So this is the submit button. Value is equal to change. Now in case of a submit input type, in case of submit button, the value of that button is actually the text that appears on the button. So we can change this to something like click here to win $250 and an exclamation mark to show our excitement. So this is the changed form. Now I've made some modifications. There is one modification still left. The title I'll change. Just say win. And there is one modification left, which is for a form tag in HTML. The action part specifies where this form is going to be submitted. So I need to specify where to submit this form, what URL to submit to, and the URL for this would be this: localhost DVWA vulnerabilities CSRF. Let's just take this, replace this octet hop with our URL. Please CSRF. Okay, this is the URL for where we want to submit these values, and I'm going to save this, save the changes that I've made. Now let's open this in a browser and see. So this is the page. Open with Firefox. So it's open here. The title is win, and this, all the user will see here is this button. Click here to win $250. Now this could be anything. You could apply different kinds of social engineering techniques. You could just say, click here to continue to the website or continue to the link. But what is actually happening is, behind the scenes we have our changed password, the value for this, and as soon as the person clicks on this button, their password will be changed. Close this, and when I click on this, so password changed. Now if I try to log in using the old password, I won't be able to, and I'll have to use the new value, CHANGDE, mistake, CHUEEASS, changed pass, and the password has been changed. Now this is a very simple example of a CSRF attack. The user is already logged into this website, already authenticated to DVWA, and we are presenting that person with a malicious link, which is this. Now when they click, this request is going to go to the website, and the password belonging to the signed in user is going to get changed. So in this case, the admin user is signed in, their password is going to be changed here. Excuse me. Now CSRF can be taken advantage of to do things like transfer money from one account to another, change passwords like this, or delete accounts. So malicious things like that, unintended actions basically are carried out because the actual owner, the legitimate user of the account, did not want to change his password. But when they click on that malicious link, their password will be changed. So this is we are able to change the password for the low security level. Let's go on to medium. Select. Go back here. Actually, go back to our page. It's medium now. If I click on this now I get a message saying that that request did not look correct. Excuse me. I did the exact same thing that I did before. I created that page, served it to the victim, I clicked on the link. But in this case, that request didn't look correct is the message that we're getting. So what I can do is I can open Burp Suite and see the difference between the two requests. Maybe that will help us figure this out. Excuse me. Now what I'm going to do, again, turn on the intercepts. Let's just close this. Turn on the intercept and in the browser I need to tell it to use both new password and so the original password, which is simply the word password, and Burp is going to intercept it. So change. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click here, click on send to comparer. Comparer is another tool within Burp Suite which can be used to compare different requests and responses. So within comparer, we see that currently we've only sent just the one request to comparer, so it only has the first item for comparison. And see, it says here this it lets you do a word or byte level comparison between different data. So this is one request. Forward it. Now we'll go to this one, the fake page that we created, and capture this request in Burp. So this has been captured. Let's send this to comparer. Then forward. Now comparer has two requests, request number 1 and 2, and we can compare them by words. So we want to take a look at the individual wording of these requests. Now see the results of this comparison. Now, of course, these password values are different in both cases. One has changed pass and in the other I use the word password itself. So of course that is going to be different. We can simply ignore that. But this, this is the part that is the main difference. Otherwise, everything else is the same in both requests. Only this part is different. So what this is actually an HTTP header called referrer, and this contains the information of the previous page. So basically it contains the information. It tells the server that okay, this request, when the user sent this request, so before sending that request, that user was on this particular page, and that is from there he sent the request. So this is what the referrer header tells. Now this is some level of protection against DVWA, sorry, not against DVWA, against CSRF in DVWA, because if you are on a, if you're changing your password, that means you're already logged in and you were using the website. So at least if you didn't do anything else, you logged into the website, opened the website, and on the password changing screen, of course, you didn't reach that directly, you logged in first. So the referrer in your case would be the same domain, the same website for whom the password you want to change. But in case of a CSRF attack, this might not be the case. You will be coming from a different domain or a different website, clicking on this link, and it'll try to change your password. So this is a very basic kind of protection against CSRF. And in order to bypass it, all I need to do is copy this. I don't even need to copy the entire thing. I can just, localhost DVW is enough. Copy this. And when I make this request again, I can simply include this in the change password request. So just a moment. Okay, I'll just come back to this part, go to this page, capture it, and include the referrer header. And now it says password changed. So we were able to bypass that. But doing this in a realistic scenario will also require you to be able to sniff the attacker's data and make changes to it. When you submit that request, you should be able to intercept that and add this to that request. Now for the high level, I encourage you to try that out on your own. Okay, it may take time, but keep practicing. So any questions so far regarding this?
No, sir.
No? Okay. So let's move on. And with this we've covered file inclusion. Okay. Now let's go on to this cross-site scripting. Now there are three kinds of cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. Okay, first let me change this to low. The first one we'll take a look at is reflected cross-site scripting. So with cross-site scripting, what you're doing is, as an attacker, if a web application is vulnerable to cross-site scripting, that means you will be able to inject or insert scripts or custom written code into web pages, and this will execute in the browser of your victim. That is, in the simplest terms, what cross-site scripting is. Now, the simplest variant, you could say, of cross-site scripting is reflected cross-site scripting. So what reflected cross-site scripting is that when an attacker inserts some kind of script into a web application, a web page, and that injected script is reflected off of the web server, and the result is seen in the victim's browser. So that is the simplest kind of cross-site scripting. Let's see what DVW is telling us here. So it's asking our name. What's your name? Let's say my name is Hari. If I submit this, okay, I can see that it's printing out, or it's outputting the name that I entered, and it's adding the word hello to before it. So hello, Hari. Now, currently I've just entered simple text. Let's say I enter some HTML code here. Let's see what happens in that case. So this B tag is for making text bold. So you open the B tag, enter the text, close it. This is the HTML code for writing the word Harry in bold. So if I submit this, hello, Harry. So, and this Harry is appearing in bold. Now let's see if I can add other HTML things as well. Just a moment. Let's see whether I can add an image like this or not. Image source is equal to. So here we are able to add an image. Okay, I admit this is a little large for what we should be, a normal image. But what we see is that while we should only be able to enter text here, we are able to enter anything we want. I added an HTML code for embedding an image into a web page. So I just took a random image from the internet and embedded it here. That means it's not really doing any kind of filtering, and we can insert whatever we want into this input field, and there's a high chance that it will work. So let's try inserting some JavaScript. So for that I'll use the script tag, script alert 1. And what this will do is it will generate that a small alert on your screen which simply says 1. So this is the alert that we were able to generate. And this is the simplest example of cross-site scripting that we can see. Even, the previous HTML code, that is also cross-site scripting. But mostly with cross-site scripting, we use JavaScript. HTML can also be injected, but that does not allow as much functionality as JavaScript does.
HTML is just markup language, so you can just play around the formats and the of the pages. But
Yes,
actually, this JavaScript is the actually that is the main coding main language used for the functionality of the web pages. So
exactly.
you can alter the functionalities.
Yes, you can alter the functionality, the behavior of the web page basically. So that is what this cross-site scripting aims to do. With HTML, you can maybe add a couple of images. You can, you know, change text formatting or something, but that is, that cannot really lead to anything malicious. Maybe very basic level defacement, but that's it. So that's why with a cross-site scripting attack, you are mostly looking to inject JavaScript. Now, let's say I create an alert again using the script tag. And this time I show you document dot cookie. This time I show the cookie for this particular domain, the cookie associated with this domain that is stored in the browser currently. So submit, and these are the details of the current cookie for the current domain. Now, of course, excuse me, this alert part is just to show that it's working. There's also quite a few other functions that you can use with cross-site scripting. There's also console.log, but in that it will only generate you know a log for whatever you wanted to say. But the thing is, in that case, the victim will not even know that some cross-site scripting is going on because no alerts are generated, no prompts are generated on screen there. You could craft the link in such a way that it will redirect this information back to you. You can also find out the IP. So instead of alert document.cookie, you could write here location dot hostname. We are currently localhost, which is DVWA is running on localhost, so that's what it says the IP is. We are actually accessing it from localhost, so that's the thing. You have also other kinds of cross-site scripting payloads basically. So the image tag that I used earlier, I can insert JavaScript in that as well. Image source is equal to X, so we are not giving it any source, and on error is equal to alert 1. Basically what this code says is that image source is equal to X, load image from this source, and we haven't provided any source. If there's any error in doing that, then run this code. So on error, alert 1 has run, and you can see it tried to load an image, but we didn't really provide a source, so it did not load, and it did not actually load any images. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that you do with cross-site scripting. And there are loads and loads of different types of payloads when we talk about this. So I'll continue with this in the next session. Meanwhile, if there's any questions, any queries about this, you can ask.
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
So, okay, and then I'll